Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we are checking out the new Home Assistant Voice Preview Edition, a new voice assistant that is not like any other. It is privacy focused, customizable, and designed specifically for the Home Assistant ecosystem. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the device, walk through the setup process with Home Assistant, and finish with some useful automations that you can use with the Home Assistant Voice. Before we dive in, I want to give a huge shout out to the team at Abucasa. They were kind enough to send me the Home Assistant Voice PE a few weeks ahead of its release, giving me the chance to test it out and share my thoughts with all of you, so big thanks to them. Alright, here's what comes in the box. Besides the Voice PE, you get some warranty information, a quick starter guide with a QR code for detailed setup instructions, and a cool OK Nabu sticker. However, the box doesn't include a USB-C cable or a power adapter, so you need to grab those separately. Taking a closer look at the device, the tab features two microphones, a dial, a button, and an LED ring surrounding it. The dial lets you adjust the volume and even customize the color of the LED ring. Pressing the center button can start or stop the conversation with the voice assistant. Beyond a single press, you can also use double, triple, and long presses to trigger automations, adding even more functionality to your setup. On the front, you can find the speaker, which is pretty decent for voice interactions. On the right side, there is a mute switch to manually turn off the microphones for privacy. Finally, on the back, you've got the USB-C port for powering the device along with a 3.5 headphone jack, so you can connect it to an external speaker for even better sound quality. Setting up the Voice PE with Home Assistant is straightforward, and you can do it directly from the Home Assistant mobile app. Just make sure that Home Assistant has location access enabled with precise location, otherwise it won't connect. First, power on the Home Assistant Voice PE. Once the LED ring starts with a twinkle animation, the device is ready to connect. Open the Home Assistant app on your mobile device, go to Settings, Devices and Services, and under the Discover section, you will see the new device listed as Home Assistant Improv via BLE. Tap Add and you will be prompted to enter your Wi-Fi credentials for a 2.4 GHz network. After entering your Wi-Fi details, tap Connect. You will then be asked to press the center button on the Voice PE to authorize the connection. Once that is done, the device will connect to your Wi-Fi successfully, and you can tap Continue to move to the next step. Next, a pop-up will appear asking if you would like to set up ESP Home. Tap OK to proceed. The Home Assistant Voice will then be listed as a Discover ESP Home device. Select it and tap Submit. At this point, the Setup Wizard will check for any available updates for the Voice PE. If an update is found, it will automatically install it, ensuring your device is up to date. By default, the Voice PE is set to use the wake word OK Nabu, but you also have two other options to choose from. To change it, simply click on Change Wake Word, select your preferred option, and follow the prompts to say the wake word a few times to ensure that it works for you. Once that is done, select the area where you plan to place the Home Assistant Voice PE, and then tap Next to continue. Now we reach the step where you select the voice pipeline for your voice assistant. You can set up a local voice pipeline and process commands directly on your own hardware. Keep in mind though that response time will depend on your device specifications. If you're using hardware like Home Assistant Green or a Raspberry Pi, responses might take a few seconds. Alternatively, if you have a Home Assistant Cloud subscription, you can configure the voice assistant to offload commands to the Home Assistant Cloud service for processing. This option significantly improves response speed, making it a great choice for smoother interactions. If you like to set up a local voice pipeline, the Setup Wizard will make it simple by handling all the configuration for you. To proceed, tap Setup under the Do-It-Yourself option. The wizard will automatically install the Whisper add-on for speech-to-text, the Piper add-on for text-to-speech, and configure them with the Wyoming protocol integration. It would also create a new assistant using Whisper and Piper. Once the setup is complete, you can do some final tweaking, like selecting the assistant voice. Personally, I recommend the HFC male voice. It sounds much more natural compared to the other options. After you finish tweaking, tap Done and the Voice PE will be ready to use. Alright, now that the setup is complete, the next step is to expose the entities that we want to control using the Home Assistant Voice PE. To do this, go to Settings, Voice Assistants, Expose, and click on Expose Entities. A pop-up will appear showing all the entities from the devices you have set up with Home Assistant. Simply select the ones you'd like to expose to the Voice Assistant and then click Expose Entities to confirm. With the entities now exposed, we can test the Home Assistant Voice PE and confirm it can control them as intended. Okay, Nabu, turn off the office desk light.
Turned off the light.
I'm running Home Assistant on the Home Assistant screen, and as you can see, the response time is a bit slow when using a local voice assistant. If you're running Home Assistant in a more powerful hardware, you'll definitely notice faster response times. Now, let's set up the Voice PE to use the Home Assistant Cloud subscription and see how it performs. If you already signed in to Home Assistant Cloud, the cloud-based voice assistant is automatically set up under the voice assistants. All we need to do is change the Voice PE Assistant settings to use the cloud option. Here is how. Go to Settings, Devices and Services, click on Devices under ESP Home, and select the Home Assistant voice device. On this page, you'll see several entities that we can explore later. For now, scroll down to locate the Assist entity, open the drop-down menu, and select Home Assistant. This is the option for the cloud service. And that's it. Now, if we test the same command we tried earlier with the local assistant, we'll notice a clear improvement in response speed. Okay, Nabu, turn off the desk light.
Turned off the light.
Okay, Nabu, turn on the desk light.
Turned on the light.
That was noticeably faster. If you already have a Home Assistant Cloud subscription and you're running Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi or Home Assistant Green, using the cloud for the Home Assistant Voice PE is definitely the better option for quicker response times. Alright, let's explore some of the entities available for the Home Assistant Voice PE. These entities allows you to control various features directly from Home Assistant without needing to interact with the device itself. For instance, you can adjust the volume using the Media Player entity or mute the microphones with the Mute entity. There is also an entity to toggle the wake sound on and off. Additionally, the wake word entity makes it easier to change the wake word for your Home Assistant Voice PE. And as we saw earlier, the Assist entity lets you switch between different voice assistant pipelines. Finally, there is the button press event entity, which you can use to create automations triggered by actions like double pressing, triple pressing, or long pressing the center button on the Home Assistant Voice PE. With all these entities available, you can already imagine the range of automations you can create. While Home Assistant comes preloaded with a variety of phrases to trigger different actions, you can also craft custom sentences in automations to trigger actions specifically to your needs. Let me show you a few simple automations I set up with my Home Assistant Voice PE. The first automation I've created utilizes the button press event entity. Since my Home Assistant voice sits on my desk, I use it to control my office and desk lights. Here's how the automation is set up. For the trigger, I added a state trigger with the button press event entity. For the action, I added a choose action with 3 options. Each option is set with a state condition using the button press event entity with the attribute set to event type. And for the action, I set it to a light toggle action. Option 1 has the state set to double press and the light toggle action set to my desk light. Option 2 has the state set to triple press and the light toggle action set to my wife's desk light. Option 3 has the state set to long press and the light toggle action set to my office light. Now let's see the automation in action. Another automation I set up is for the weather. By default, if you expose a weather entity to the voice assistant, you can ask for the current weather and it will provide you a simple response with the current temperature in your area. However, it doesn't yet offer more detailed information or let you ask about the weather for the following day. Thankfully, we can fix that by creating an automation using the weather.get forecast action. I won't go into full details on how this automation is set up in this video. It will make the video too long. However, I do plan to cover the weather.get forecast automation in detail in a separate video. For now, I'll give you a quick overview and show you how it works with the Home Assistant Voice PE. So I set up 2 sentences triggers. The first one responds to a sentence asking for the current weather. I also set up a trigger ID to use it in one of the actions below. The second trigger responds to sentences asking for the weather for today or tomorrow, using a wildcard to capture the word today or tomorrow. For the Actions section, I set up a Choose Action with 3 options. Option 1 has the condition set to trigger by, set to the trigger ID that I set up on the first sentence above. Then for the action, I added a Set Conversation Response action to provide the current weather condition, temperature, and humidity. Option 2, I set up a template condition that triggers when the wildcard contains the word today. Then for the action, I added the Weather Get Forecast action to fetch weather details, store the data in a variable, and use it in the next action. For the next action, I added a Set Conversation Response action that provides the weather condition for today, the high and low temperature, humidity, and the precipitation probability. Option 3 is similar to option 2, but triggers when the wildcard contains the word tomorrow. The first action fetches the weather forecast again using the same Weather Get Forecast action. The second action is set to Set Conversation Response, and it provides the same weather details as option 2, but for the next day. I know this was a lot to take in quickly, and I didn't dive into all the technical details. I'll cover this automation in greater depth in a future video. For now, I'll leave the YAML file for this and the other automations in the blog post linked in the video description. Now, let's see this automation in action with the Home Assistant Voice PE. Okay, Nabu, what's the weather?
It is currently cloudy with a temperature of 39 degrees and a humidity of 80%.
Okay, Nabu, what's the weather for today?
The forecast for today is cloudy with a high temperature of 43 degrees and a low of 24 degrees. The probability for precipitation is 95%.
Okay, Nabu, what's the forecast for tomorrow?
The forecast for tomorrow is rainy with a high temperature of 53 degrees and a low of 44 degrees. The probability for precipitation is 90%.
The next automation I want to show you is to broadcast messages. If you have multiple Home Assistant voice devices around your home, you can use them to send custom messages from one device to another in different areas of your home. I'm sure that this type of functionality will be officially implemented in future updates, eliminating the need for a custom automation. But for now, here's how I set it up. I set up a sentence trigger that responds to a command asking to announce or broadcast a message to a specific area. This contains 2 wildcards. One of them is message to capture the content of the message to broadcast. The other one is area to capture the name of the area where the message should be sent. Then for the action, I use the Assist Satellite Announce action. Since we have to add some template elements, I switch from the visual editor to YAML mode. Then I set the message to trigger that slots that message, which will respond with the message capture in the message wildcard. Then for target, I set it to trigger that slots that area. This will broadcast the message on the specific area in your home. Since some areas have 2 separate words in the name, for example, living room, I added the replace filter to replace the space between the words with an underscore. Otherwise, the automation won't work. At the moment, I only have one Home Assistant Voice PE, so I can't show you how the automation works between devices. However, this automation also works when you use the Voice Assistant feature from the Home Assistant mobile app. Broadcast in the office the following message. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Done.
So what do you guys think about the new Home Assistant Voice PE? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in getting one, you can find a link in the description, along with the link for my blog post for this video. The blog post includes the setup instructions and the YAML details for all the automations I cover, so you can easily incorporate them into your own setup. Alright guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you in the next one.